The morning after the night before, part two, we got to talk about Daniel Dubois because I would have to say that performance against Jarrell Miller, I would go as far as saying that was a career best performance. Right? He had some rough moments in there. He had some rough moments. Right? It was not all plain sailing. I know. Now, I don't know what the scorecards were looking at by the time of the stoppage, but you would imagine you would have Daniel Dubois in a wide lead. And, yeah, he was having a lot of success in there and he was doing very well. He was really battering Jarrell Miller. But he did have those moments where he came under pressure. He had those moments where it looked like his gas tank was starting to run out a little bit. And in the past, we've seen Dubois, have that bit of a worried look on his face. We've obviously saw against Joyce what happened there. Obviously, he did have the injury. And then obviously we saw again against Alexander Usyk in his most recent fight. But in this fight right here, he was able to come through those difficult times. He took some shots from Jarrell Miller in there, but I don't think there was any shot that Miller hit him with that would have you looking and thinking, oh no, don't land that again. Dubois, I think, was comfy in there for the most part. The fact he was able to come through, we'll say a mini crisis, come through it and come through swinging. Not even need to really kind of stop and reflect or anything like that. Just come through swinging. And the fact he was able to dig down and find what he needed to do. Find that inner, what would you want to say, that inner second wind. He was able to find that and come through it. For me, the fact that he is only 26 years old and off the back of that performance, they talk about Joshua being reborn on that card, and we might talk about him later, but for me, I would say Daniel Dubois, that's him reborn as a fighter almost. Because you look at someone like Dubois, there is a little bit of talent there. He puts his shots together very well. He throws very good straight punches, very hard straight punches. He throws very good combinations. He switches it up good to head and body. When you look at Dubois as a fighter, there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot to like. Yeah, he definitely is a little bit upright. He's quite very stiff in the back. He's not the quickest heavyweight in the world. I don't think his gas tank is as bad as maybe some people make it out to be. I think he was making that fight harder in a sense of he was pushing Jarrell Miller back a lot, which he shouldn't really been doing. And I think that was, you're pushing a big, massive, essentially a heavy bag with arms, 100 pounds heavier than you, and that's not, barbell weight. That's living, breathing flesh that you're pushing away. That's going to tire anybody out. I think that kind of contributed to him, losing a bit of steam in those mid rounds, but obviously he was able to get it back. I think with Dubois, there's a lot to like there. There's a lot of good, and to come through this fight the way he did and to close the show in the last round in the dying seconds, just to leave no doubt in anyone's mind, that is going to help him exponentially. I did say as well, on Twitter, that he obviously has a girlfriend now, and that's obviously meaning something to him. The fact that he knows, okay, I've got someone. It's all well and good to have your family watch, but now I've got someone else watching and I want to do it for them. Maybe that's the way he's thinking, I don't know. But having that extra bit of motivation from your family, from your partner and stuff like that, that can go a long way. Believe me, that can go a hell of a long way to just, where before you would go through the motions, you would just kind of, okay, I'm doing just enough. Now it's like, no, I'm not doing enough. I've got to do that little bit more. And maybe that's all Dubois really needed, was just that big boot up the arse and say, look who's watching. Between your family and your partner, you're like, okay, now before it was all well and good to just go through the motions and see what happens. Now I really got to take the bull by the scruff of the neck. Maybe that's what he needed all along. In terms of what he does from here, that win right there against Miller, it's gone down well. It was a popular victory, safe to say. And it opens him up to more big fights now. Might even open him up to some more fights in Saudi, in which case he's going to get well paid. Very well paid. But for me, the fight that if I was Frank Warren, I would 100% be looking at and I would be keen to make. Well, there's two fights really, if I was Frank Warren, that I would be keen to make. One of them is a fight that they did try and do last year, I think it was last year anyway. It's probably a bit more unrealistic now, probably very unrealistic because of where this guy is in his career and what's been going on. And that will be Dillian Whyte. There was rumours that they were trying to do it for the WBA regular title last year. Didn't happen. Dubois ended up fighting Kevin Lerena on the undercard of Fury Chisora 3. Obviously, we know now what's happened with Dillian Whyte. He was meant to get that Joshua fight. Some would argue he doesn't even deserve that crack against Daniel Dubois, even if, you could say, okay, you've had a year and a bit out, we'll backdate it to then, whatever. But some would argue maybe he doesn't even deserve that. Well, look, Jarrell Miller served his time. He got his ass kicked. There you go. Dylan White will be an opponent that I would look at if he has no issues with UCAT. If they say, okay, you're banned, but we're backdating it to, August, or July, whenever. So yeah, your ban has been served. You can fight Dubois in the new year. If they could do that fight, well, that's a big fight for Daniel Dubois. And Dylan White, although his star isn't shining as bright as it used to, certainly not, that would still put eyes on. And I think for Dubois, he would be able to come in and say, I've already beat one drug cheat, I'm going to go and beat a second. And a multiple drug cheat as well in Dylan White's case, because he's failed more than one test in his career. I think that's his third one now. So you could do that. But probably the obvious fight for Dubois, in-house, bit of needle there, and a chance for even further redemption, would obviously be the Joyce fight. And for me, that fight just makes the most sense. Like, as soon as I saw that fight yesterday with Miller, I was like, do Joyce next. Makes the most sense for all parties involved. Because for Daniel Dubois, you get a chance to redeem yourself following on from what happened in the first fight, or the fight that they had in 2020. You get a chance for redemption. For Joyce, what the hell is he doing? He's literally in no man's land in the heavyweight division. He was mandatory for Alexander Usyk. He took a risk that, in all fairness, respect him for taking it, but he didn't need to take against Zhilei Zhang. He got battered in the first fight, and then he got taken out and knocked out in the second fight. So he's in no man's land. He's not getting any younger. Him against Dubois, when they originally tried to do that fight, it was April 2020 was when they were going to do it, and they were going to do it on BT Sport pay-per-view at the time. Obviously, situations happened, so we didn't get that fight until the latter part of 2020, in which case it was behind closed doors, and obviously it wasn't on pay-per-view. They just did it on standard BT Sport, as it was known at the time. With this one, would they go and revisit the pay-per-view? I wouldn't. Personally, if I was Warren, I wouldn't revisit the pay-per-view, but certainly that could do the OVO or the O2 Arena. More likely the OVO. It would do that, probably no questions asked. And Daniel Dubois will be riding the crest of a wave off the back of this. A lot of the UK fans will be, hyping him up and happy to see him get the win over Jarrell Miller, because Jarrell Miller was such a divisive character. So for me, if I was Warren, or George Warren, or the heads of Queensberry, I'd be thinking in-house. It's Frank Warren has always wanted to push Daniel Dubois. Going into that Joyce fight, that was the guy Warren wanted to win. When Joyce beat Daniel Dubois, Warren looked like, his fighter took a loss, in a sense of it was his only fighter. As if Joyce was in a away fight. He wasn't. So for Warren, this is a chance to, again, push on, get Daniel Dubois to win back, and God knows that'll get him probably a decent ranking with one of the sanctioned bodies, most likely the WBO. So it would give Dubois a chance to push on, and obviously, given the fact that we have Undisputed next year, given the all likelihood that the winner will have to have a rematch, an immediate rematch, and may very well decide after that rematch to call it a day, because I think both Fury and Usyk have one foot out the door, those belts are going to get, fractured all around the place. You'll have Usyk, or you'll have Joshua versus Hergovich potentially fighting for a vacant title. God knows where some of the other vacant titles could go. Parker could fight for a vacant WBC, you just don't know. So there's a chance for Dubois to be a legit world champion. And I think that that's what Frank Warren is going to try and do. So for Dubois, momentum is all with him now. And again, credit to him, because he only fought Usyk in August, the back end of August, not that long ago. And to lose like that, most fighters would come back with an easy fight. Now, on the surface, this fight was reasonably easy for Daniel Dubois, how it played out. But on paper, this was a tough fight. Really tough fight. So to come back in at the deep end and to not sink, credit to him. Absolute credit to Daniel Dubois. For him moving forward, I would say that they'd be the two fights, certainly for me, that I'd be looking at. With Dylan White, I would say Daniel Dubois would take care of Dylan White in a couple of rounds pretty easy. To be honest with you, pretty damn easy. I think he'd ragdoll him and take him out in 3 or 4 rounds. Obviously, he has his issues that he needs to resolve. We don't know where he stands with that. We haven't heard from him in months. And obviously then you look at the Joyce rematch as another alternative, which again, I think it would still do good numbers, certainly on standard TNT anyway. So for Dubois, definitely, you could say it's a bit of a rebirth in his career, following on from the win over Jarrell Miller. Let me know your thoughts on what you think he should be doing next in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. Lads and lassies, for now, I will leave it with that. Peace.